Hello, how's it going? I recently restored this absolutely stunning Nintendo Game Boy store display kiosk. This would have been displayed in stores in the 1990s to actually advertise the Game Boy and allow customers to go into the store and play it. This is a truly iconic piece and I got the pleasure of restoring it and I absolutely love it. There is, however, an issue that I didn't actually realize at the time in the video, genuinely, and I know that's gonna sound hard to believe and that I'm maybe getting an extra video out of this, but truly I did not know that this was a problem. The problem being that one of the two speakers didn't work. Now this has stereo sound. There are two speakers either side. That comes through from the front. The Game Boy is actually in mono, so it's actually really nice to hear all of the sounds in stereo, but unfortunately, this currently is not doing that. But the reason why I didn't realize it was a problem is because the other one still works. And if I just actually plug everything in here and demonstrate that. So there we go. And it goes really, really loud. So I had absolutely no idea that there was a problem with the sound. Now this speaker is actually disconnected, as you can see. The reason being, I thought perhaps it was the speaker that was broken. I actually went out and found a replacement speaker. It's not gonna be identical. I think it's gonna be quite hard to find an identical speaker that's so old, but it's exactly the same specifications and actual size, so it fit in there really nicely. But if I actually just show you this here, we'll turn this on. Unfortunately, one of the pads broke on the back of the speaker, but the wire is still perfectly intact, meaning if I hold this speaker up to the wires to basically imitate as if it was actually connected, absolutely nothing happens. And to show you that it isn't the speaker, which is what I thought it was, here's the brand new one. So I can plug the wires into there, and it still doesn't work. However, when I put it up to my ear, and I'm gonna put it very closely up to my microphone and see if you can hear this too. It's very, very, very quiet. So then I was thinking, what the hell is going on, basically? Because this is really confusing. There is sound coming out. It obviously isn't the speaker, so hopefully we'll be able to use this speaker again. We'll have to wait until we connect it up and see if it works. But why is there only one channel playing properly and then the other one is extremely low? Well, my guess is that it's the volume wheel. The volume potentiometer is the actual fancy name for it. My guess is that it's the potentiometer that is attached to this board. I have a feeling it's broken. Now, upon actually looking at it closer, and I'll put a close-up up on the screen right now, it is actually cracked. So that's almost definitely what's wrong. And as well as that, if I slide that potentiometer around, it sounds terrible. So I went out and bought another potentiometer, which is what's in this bag. Now it's the exact same specifications, technically the same resistance, etc. The end is going to be ever so slightly different. At a certain point, I've got to stop caring about trying to keep this thing as original as possible when it comes down to components like these. I just want the thing to actually work. But yeah, if I rotate this one around, you can't hear a single thing. So my guess is that it's this. I think because inside the potentiometer there'll be sort of little metal brushes that will be scraping along a pad or something like that. My guess is that something's chewed up inside, something's cracked, something's snapped, and now it doesn't work. I mean, this thing did take a significant beating, so I'm not gonna be surprised if that's the problem. Let's swap the potentiometer out and hook up the speaker again and see if that works. And I just want to say a big thank you to PCBWay for sponsoring this video, as well as the last one. Without them, I would not have this bracket. They offer sheet metal fabrication, which is what I've used here. They also do 3D printing, injection molding, various other different types of sheet metal fabrication as well, CNC machining, and then as well as that, every single PCB manufacturing you can possibly ever want or need. So yeah, massive shout out to them. They have made this possible. not gonna lie, it's a very expensive ordeal for me. So yeah, let's get on with swapping out this potentiometer. So removing this shouldn't be too hard. The pins are absolutely massive. I'm gonna use a solder sucker and some solder and obviously my soldering iron. I'm basically probably gonna add some solder to each of these pins and then heat up the solder, suck the solder away, and then hopefully just pull the potentiometer out, and then we can solder the new one in. So let's crack on with that. Cool. So now what we basically need to do is wiggle the pins and loosen them up, basically. So with all of that solder sucked away, it's literally a case of just pulling the old potentiometer out. So that's bloody awesome. So there's a whole bunch of burnt flux on the board. So let's remove all of that with some isopropyl alcohol. Just get a nice clean surface for us to then put the new potentiometer onto. So the old one is now off. Here's the new one. You can see A50K, that's referring to the current, the resistance or something like that. I'm not 100% sure. If anybody can find me an exact one of these, please get in touch with me. It actually looks like A is the company or something, because if you have a look around here, there's an actual very small A in the metal there. So if anybody can find me an exact one of these with this smooth tip, that would be awesome. For now, I've gone with this one, which I just found on eBay. The board is all now nice and clean and tidied up. And as you can see, satisfyingly, once I poke it through, boom, the new pins line up perfectly, which is absolutely lovely. So let's now solder it in, and then we can test if it actually works. So this is really, really exciting. I'm so close now. Another quick wipe with the isopropyl alcohol. Lovely. Okay, that is the new potentiometer installed, which means only one thing. Let's test it. So I made a big mistake. I got all cocky and thought I knew which way everything plugged back in, and while I did get the orientation of each connector right, I plugged the power into the audio and the audio into the power, and then turned it all on. It was supposed to go with a multimeter. And I just fried something on the audio circuit line, whatever the technical words are. And that thing is this right here, which is a transistor. And I've got to say a massive thank you to my friend Shawn from the SJM4306 channel. He's an absolute wizard. This is on diode mode. We can put the multimeter up to the transistor, one leg on one of the three on one side, and then you can move the probe to either one. So in the middle leg, we're getting 0.1 reading, and then on the far side leg, we're getting 0.2. And if we go over to a healthy one and do the same test, in the middle leg, we're getting 0.7, and then on the far side leg, we're getting 1.3. So there's a big difference there in the readings on the exact same component. So the first thing we have to do is swap out that component. I've ordered a bunch, they've arrived. Let's get on with that, and then fingers crossed, then the whole thing works again. If not, I'm gonna cry. Right, so let's have a look here. This is what we need to remove. These 3 legs here. I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna add some solder suck away, and then put the new one in, solder it all together. Fingers crossed. Okay, so it's actually falling out. There's a tiny bit of solder on the far side leg. So if I just touch the soldering iron on the pads, they will just come all the way through. And there we go. That is the transistor out. Here's the new one, as you can see, pretty much identical. So let's get that soldered in. Just got to open the legs up a little bit to get it through the hole. There we go. And it's gone in nicely. We can get it to the exact same height as the neighboring one. Flip it over, and then we can just solder those legs to the board. Just like that, the new transistor is in. Let's give it all a quick clean up with some isopropyl. So I'm gonna prioritize testing before we cut off the legs here. So let's get this right. Let's get this right this time. This is the audio one. I'm gonna plug that in. These are the speakers, so let's plug that in. And nothing is plugged in on the actual kiosk, so I'm gonna plug in the power as well. And then what I'm actually gonna do, before I turn this on and make the same mistake again, I'm gonna watch the video back and double check, because I cannot afford to mess anything up again. Okay. Here's the Game Boy. This is the moment of truth. Oh, thank the Lord. And Shawn, mostly Shawn. Oh God. Wow, that's a relief. Oh, okay, now the next thing is the audio. What a relief that is. So here we go, let's plug this in. And if the sound works immediately, we know that the potentiometer is okay. Hell yeah. Wow, no crackling. Wow, it goes loud. This is the test. This is the test to find out if it was the potentiometer. Let's connect the speaker wires to the speaker. Here we go. It was. The speaker is now working. Look at that. Okay, so we can actually test the original speaker now as well and see if that works. The sound is a bit crap out of this speaker. It's a little bit kind of crackly. I'm gonna solder in the new speaker. I'm gonna keep the old one, but the sound is such an important part of the display experience that this kiosk is offering and was intended for. So let's just solder in the new speaker and then be done with it. So let's get on with that. Boom, that's working. And so's the one in here. Yes! Oh, that is so sick. the new potentiometer, the new speaker. There is one other new thing to add to this kiosk. Now, this Game Boy has this sticker on it, which is the sticker that says, for display only, unit will not work if separated from display. Turns out, this is not actually the right Game Boy. I know, it's crazy. On top of that, it's also got a Japanese version of Tetris in there, which is not actually correct. And the artwork on the front of this kiosk would suggest that it's an American copy of Tetris. So that is where my friend Gray from GameBoy Gray on Instagram comes in. This is the right Game Boy. Here it is. Here's the copy of Tetris. It's the same one on the actual artwork. And most importantly, the smaller sticker. And if you look at Ben's kiosk, it's got this small sticker, not this ginormous one. And on top of that, one thing that's really, really cool, which is not present on this one, is you can actually see the lines that are from years and years and years of this Game Boy being in a kiosk. It's actually got the sort of markings and indentations on the side of the Game Boy where it was in a kiosk. It's very, very, very small. But obviously there's the horizontal bars that go across it and sort of clamp it in. So you would expect to see wear there. This is the proper one. Let's put everything back inside now. Let's snip off these legs. Okay, the speaker, we're gonna have to work out how to attach this in, because it is, you know what, I wonder if, do you know what, the wire will hold it in. There we go. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. The wire holds it in, that's not gonna fall out anywhere. Okay, so we can tuck that back in now. Awesome. Okay, so now we need to feed the audio wire through. So now it's time to hook up the Game Boy, so we can start by plugging in the 3.5mm audio wire, flip it over, and then we can take our PCB-way mounting bracket, the battery cover, and then we can take the original bracket, which then goes on over the top, and then we can screw in the screw. There we go. That's the bracket on the back. Obviously, big shout out to LTT for sponsoring the first video and providing me with the awesome screwdrivers. So that's the Game Boy in the mounting bracket. We can then slide the Game Boy in to the kiosk. Seamlessly, there we go, okay. And then we've got the two sort of railing things that go over the top. Weird jump cut. I wanted to show it in the actual settings. So I'm on my phone, a little bit seasicky, sorry about that. But if I just quickly go over here and turn it on, hang on. Boom. Look at her. She's absolutely beautiful. I mean, the iPhone does slightly weird things to the lighting, but in person, it's very well diffused. And then if we go over here, you can see it's all working beautifully. And most importantly, for the actual purpose of this video, the sound works. I mean, that's gonna be a very hard thing to, to actually show, but yeah, both sides now work. Before it was just the one. So I'm very, very pleased about that. A huge relief, honestly, and the fact that the Game Boy is working again. One thing I also wanted to just quickly tell you about was the paint job on the top. Obviously, this is in low lighting, but in most lightings, it's absolutely fine for me. And it was more important for me to try and keep as much of the paint original as possible. What I'm gonna do at some point is try and find a better paint match from a different company, but honestly, it's just so nice to have this thing all back together. I also cleaned up the side panels and the back. That was something that I didn't mention in the video, but the door and the side panels are all absolutely, well, spotless really, especially considering the original condition, and the original lock is back in the door awaiting the key that's gonna actually make the original lock work. So there we have it, the Game Boy store display kiosk. Everything is now working. It is absolutely beautiful, and I love how it looks in this room. It's also just so nice to have this room be tidy again. It took up so much of the room for so long. And here is the original little packet of parts. If I ever do get rid of it, it can come with that, but there's probably no way I'm ever getting rid of this, let's be honest. Well, thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you again in the next one. Goodbye. Whee!